Well, hey, everybody. Getting ready to record episode 162 of Mike in the Midwest. So let's do this here on the last Tuesday of August. Record here. Get a sip and get going. Here we go. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to episode number 162 of Mike in the Midwest, our mini podcast for the amazing patrons just like you of the Be Our Guest podcast. Of course, my name is Mike Rallman, host of the Be Our Guest podcast, which you can check out at beourguestpodcast.com or anywhere you download podcasts. But guess what? You know how to do that because you're a patron. You're a super fan. So thank you so much. I say that, but I truly do mean it because I hope you always know that when we get to do the podcasts on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, that you hear that we have a good time doing those shows, whether I'm doing the shows with Scott, like we're doing this week, Pam, Ricky, on Mondays with guests that I get to meet and talk to and get to shoot the breeze about trips to Walt Disney World, sometimes Disney cruises, Disneyland, occasionally Adventures by Disney. It's just awesome to get to talk with folks in our audience about Disney adventures and really the good stuff in life, and you guys make that possible. I have the best time to get behind the mic. I get to live one of my dreams, which is going to be one of the topics of today's show in just a few minutes. So thank you for that. Seriously, it's when you get to help somebody live their dream, that's pretty cool, and you guys are getting to do that for me, and I know that it is something that you're doing out of the kindness of your heart. So thank you for that. I'm always so very grateful for that. So what's going on around here? It's the last Tuesday of August. How quickly has the summer gone? Last week it was so hot here in St. Louis. If you walked outside, you immediately kind of melted into the pavement. It was incredibly hot. We were in the middle of a historic heat wave. Right now, 72 degrees and no humidity outside. It is glorious. The heat has gone away. So we are doing pretty good here in the Midwest. I am thinking about our friends down in Florida. It looks like Walt Disney World's going to, knock on wood, again, it's a couple days away, but it looks like Walt Disney World may miss this Hurricane Ida. I always mispronounce those things. But looks like this one's going to go a little bit to the northwest of Walt Disney World. Of course, they will get winds and rain. But the folks out in Tampa and in the Panhandle, we're thinking about you, Pensacola, Gainesville, stuff like that. If you're down there, stay safe, hunker down. We're thinking of you. We're praying for you. We want you to stay safe, but definitely watching, keeping an eye on that. So what else is going on around here? This is going to be a big week here. Just for us, I try to always give you an update of what's just happening behind the scenes in our life here in St. Louis. This week, of course, the girls are back in school. My Jeep broke down this week. That's wonderful. So my Jeep is in the shop right now. I just got a call this morning while I was walking on the treadmill. Of course, it's an expensive fix, but what can you do? It's an old Jeep. I got it in 2012, and I drive my vehicles. I take care of them. I keep them made, I always get the oil changed and, get the tires rotated. I drive my vehicles. Once they're paid off, they are awesome, because I don't want to have to get a new car forever. And I love my Jeeps hang in there forever. They're like built like tanks, right? But my wife, I went to Taco Bell last night because it was Monday night, right? I did the podcast, boom, did the podcast. Then I do I don't leave the house very often. So my car doesn't go anywhere, my Jeep. So I put Riley in the back seat as we do every Monday night. We went down to Taco Bell. I got my order of, my nachos, my chili cheese burrito, my bean burrito, my, what else do I get? My cheesy roll up thing and my Doritos Locos Taco, and came home. And Pam comes home from picking up Mallory from cheerleading from the high school. And she says, your Jeep's leaking, right? I said, what? She goes, it must be your air conditioner. Cause your air conditioner is leaking this summer because of the moisture. She says, my car does that all the time. I said, Pam, I haven't had the air conditioner on in that Jeep because it does have air conditioning. I said, I haven't had that air conditioning on in years because I have the top off and the doors off. I just drive with no air conditioning. So I was like, that's not good. So I go out, crawl under the Jeep, and I know nothing about anything mechanical, zero. And her dad was a mechanic at an auto dealership. So, I always say I'm not Don Bullington. That's her dad. Her dad can fix anything. Her dad is amazing. My father-in-law. but I know nothing. But I go out there and just kind of peek under there, like I'm going to know what anything is. I look, but I do see stuff dripping down, so I know that is bad news. And I know that if you don't have coolant or antifreeze, I know that you will burn up your engine. I'm not that dumb, so I immediately tell her, well, we should probably take it up to Dobbs, which is our chain place here in St. Louis that they fix vehicles. And so, of course, it's never easy with the Jeep, right? So I don't have the top on it. I don't have doors on it. So I figure I better put that on in case it's not going to rain, but I don't want it to get jacked while it's in the parking lot or stolen. So it's a whole ordeal just to drop it off up there. So you got to put the doors on it. And the doors weigh a ton. You got to put the windows back in. You got to put the top up. So, and I'm sweating that, we had to do all that. Then you got to take it up there. The place is closed because it's after 7. You got to park it in the parking lot. Then you got to get an envelope out of this little box and put your key in there and then write what you think's wrong with it. And they called me this morning. Of course, it is a water pump and my battery's on the way out. There's a belt that's bad. Of course. I mean, it's got 100,000 miles and it's 13 years. It's 12 years old. But they're going to fix it and it's all going to be good, hopefully by this afternoon. What can you do? It's an old car. It's given me no trouble up to this point. I can't complain. And those things, after 100,000 miles, I can't complain. It's never given me a lick of trouble. It's just stuff wears out, I guess. So anyway, that's what's going on in my life today. We've all been there, right? You gotta just get through and you need a vehicle. So that's what happens. What else? Later on this week, I'm excited because Thursday night is Mizzou's first football game of the year. So we get to drive out to Columbia. Now, if you don't know, I always talk about Mizzou and how we have season tickets for the football game, but you probably don't realize Mizzou is not in, like, I don't live where Mizzou plays for their home games. We live about 100 miles from the stadium. So when we go to Mizzou games, it takes us about 2 hours to get there. We have to drive down Interstate 70 about 90, it's about 100 miles. Down to the west. It's because Mizzou plays right in the dead center of Missouri. We're on the eastern side of Missouri. So it's halfway between St. Louis and Kansas City is where the campus is. So we play at 7:00 on Thursday night, which is going to be fun because we get to play first and we'll be on SEC Network. And it's really nice because the reason they moved the game is a couple of reasons. One, we get to be one of the first games of the year or the weekend because it's Thursday night. It's a holiday weekend. So if we played on Saturday, a lot of the students would be gone because they're going to leave, obviously, for the holiday weekend. This way, the students will still be there. It's a night game, which is always way more fun. And plus, because with us playing on Thursday night, it opens up our weekend plans. We don't have to go to Mizzou on Saturday, which is kind of fun. So we're doing that on Thursday night. Can't wait. So look for me on SEC Network. And then here's the kicker. On Friday night, our high school football team plays at a school called Jackson, which is a really good football team. I mean, they're really good in the state of Missouri, and it's 2.5 hours away. So on Friday, right after, so Pam has to teach, obviously, on Thursday and Friday. So Pam teaches. She doesn't get out of school till 3:50. The game's at 7. So she's going to hustle home on Thursday. Fortunately, she comes home west, and that's towards our house. We get in the car. We're going to go down 70, go to Mizzou. We'll probably get there right at kick. She's taken off a little bit early on Friday because we got to go like through the teeth of St. Louis traffic to go to the game on the football game for Jackson on Saturday or Friday night. That game kicks at 7 as well. And it's way down in the Boot Heel, down by Cape Girardeau, down like if you look by Arkansas, if you know what Missouri looks like on a map, we have the little Boot Heel down in the southeast corner. That's where Jackson is. So we got to go down there. So that's Friday night. So we're going to have a lot of driving over Thursday and Friday. We got 2.5 hours, 2 hours on Thursday, 2.5 hours on Friday to get to the games. But hey, it's football. Who cares? It's the Vikings and it's the Tigers. I'm pumped. And then Saturday, chill day here at the house, it looks like. And then on Sunday, we're having a triple birthday party for Pam's family. Her sister, her mom, and her dad all have birthdays within a few days of each other. So we're going to do that. We're going to grill. And then Monday, I don't know. And then Sunday night, we'll have the live call-in show. So Colin Scott won't be here. He's going to Cincinnati to hang out with some friends from the podcast. And then Monday, we'll record the podcast and stuff. I think if I can find somebody to record with me. So that's what's going on around here. I hope you're doing well. Things couldn't, other than the car trouble, which everybody has. And I mean, if car trouble's the worst thing that's happening to you on any given day, I'll take it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to always look at things. Like, I could have been devastated when the guy called and told me what it's going to cost to get my Jeep fixed. But then I looked at it and I said, you know what? It wasn't a doctor calling me to tell me like I'm losing my big toe. That would have been worse news. So it's better that my Jeep has to get fixed than, guess what, Mike? We got to chop off your left toe today. I go to that been worse news. Everything's perspective, right? So I try to think, I'm not trying to think about the bill. The bill's not going to be good, but I'm keeping my toe for today. So, and I have a nasty looking big toe because of the running and all the stuff. I need to slow down with that. All right, let's hit the feedback from last week's show about penny candy. I don't know. I need to maybe do a script. Do you guys even like this show? I don't even know why you download it. I'm so random. All right, last week we talked about penny candy. David Z, thank you so much for being a patron. I appreciate you so much. Also, shout out to Tim over in the UK. We're working back and forth about a possible vacation next winter, and I got to meet him. He says he's a patron. I just want to say hey to him because we've been working this morning on a trip. So I just like meeting our patrons. That's very cool. But David Z says, hey, Mike, love the podcast today. Listening to you talk about penny candy brought back a bunch of memories. The candy cigarettes, even before you said it, I had that chalky taste in my mouth. Exactly. Those things were gross. But man, we had to like puff on them and like you'd have that little chalk like smoke. They were disgusting though. But you'd roll them up into your sleeve and look like a tough guy. So I had, again, I have Love Boat on Pluto TV sometimes here in the office, had it on this morning. And it was wild. Like there was an episode there in Hong Kong, they were in China, and dude's puffing away on a ferry over to Hong Kong. And just looks so wild to see somebody just pop out a pack of cigarettes and smoke a cigarette on TV. Anyway, back to David Z. Bazooka bubblegum. Yep. Now my jaw hurts. Used to love Now and Laters. We had so many flavors to choose from, and it was always so hard to decide. So many good memories of riding my bike to the family pantry. Oh my gosh, near my childhood home in the Chicago suburbs with my friends during the summer. Keep up the great work. David, you just reminded me, by my house. Okay, I talked about Myers, but in the other direction, we had a place called Family Pantry that we could buy penny candy at as well. It was right next to Ray's Donuts. It was a little bit beyond the grocery store where my grandma worked. It was called Tomboy. That was the name of the grocery store. And if you went up about 2 more blocks, there was a place called Family Pantry. Now, we didn't go there as often, but we did go there occasionally. I wonder if that was a chain. I always thought that was just a local place, Family Pantry. Yeah, next to Ray's Donuts. We go there occasionally to get like milk, like as a family, like it was next to. Well, that's interesting. This is why I love this because it's regional and we had some of the same memories. All right, Trisha, my good friend up in Wisconsin, who, by the way, had another turkey stick this morning that you got me. So good. Just about 30 minutes ago. She says, I still love bottle caps. Each flavor was a soda, orange, cola, root beer, cherry. Way better than Sweethearts. We also had wax bottles that had a teaspoon of sweet colored liquid. I remember wax bottles. Those were kind of bizarre because I have a thing about wax. I don't know. Like those things, they kind of textured me. I couldn't do them. But I'd see people bite those like caps off and just like suck the liquid out of them. I couldn't do wax bottles, but I knew a lot of people did. And I know like they drink the juice and stuff and they'd eat the wax bottle. But I mean, are you going to eat a candle? That's barbaric. I don't know. Some people do it, I guess. I don't know. I do a lot of things people probably think are barbaric myself. So I don't know. She continues. Those were so gross because they would leave a waxy coating on your teeth after you bit the top off. Thank you. Oh my gosh. Bell for Trisha. Yes, that's why we're friends. Because I had kids that would just eat the whole dang bottle. And I'm like, do you go around just like eating candles? That's disgusting. Anyway, and those little hard dots stuck to the paper. To this day, I cannot figure out how to get those little candies off the paper without taking some of the paper with it. And yes, as a kid, I would still eat it with little bits of paper. As a kid, it's fiber. Yes, I know what you're talking about. Those dots that were on the paper. I never got into those, but I do remember those very well. A lot of work, not a lot of return for your investment. No ROI on that candy. I love it. And Michael Corbett, he says, good morning, Mike. This podcast is proof that different strokes for different folks is a true saying. I love Tootsie Rolls. Both the original and the vanilla flavored. I also love and still buy a bit of honey. Butterscotch discs were also a favorite. Just finished off a box of bottle caps. They used to be about the size of actual bottle caps, but now they are so small. Started saving for the 7-night 2025 podcast cruise. Yes. Hope everything's going great out in Utah. Your Utes are playing against the Gators, I believe, week 1 here soon. So good luck to them. Yeah, it'll be good to see you again. It was so fun sailing with you. And man, here's the thing. Somebody's got to love Tootsie Rolls because there are Tootsie Rolls of all kinds, and the world is saturated with Tootsie Rolls. And I'm just telling you, Officer Hart, that story I told last week was honest to God true. Anytime a kid got an answer right during dare, and this happened because I taught 6th grade for 9 years in a row. Then I taught gifted for 4, 5, and 6, but we didn't have dare in that. But for 9 years in a row in my classroom, which was next to my wife's classroom at the time, because he would go from my room where he taught dare, then he'd go over to Pam's room. He would, like, if a kid got a thing right, boom, like Anthony would get a Tootsie Roll, and then here would come on flying back at me in the back of the room. Whew. And I'd have to, yes, good job, Anthony. You just got me a Tootsie Roll. And I'd be all excited. And the joke was, they're like, Mr. Ron, why don't you ever eat them? I hate Tootsie Rolls. Don't tell Officer Hart, it'd be impolite. And so it was like our joke, but it was a lesson for my kids at the same time. Like, there's going to be times in life where a little white lie is not a bad thing. But he's a police officer. You're lying to I'm not lying to a police officer. I just don't want to be rude to tell him that I don't like his Tootsie Rolls. And I don't throw them away, so I'm not being mean. I'm repurposing them. I give them out to you guys later on when you get another answer right during math class or reading class. So everybody wins. So it's kind of an ethics lesson, I guess, looking back on it. But Michael, on the 2025 podcast cruise, I'm bringing you Tootsie Rolls. I promise, a variety pack. That's awesome. Thanks for the great feedback, guys. I love it. If you have any feedback on this or any other topic, patreon.com/BRGS podcast. Again, still, I'd love to hear more memories from Penny Candy because I love that stuff. All right, today's topic. I got to hit this because I was thinking about this on Sunday morning when I was on the treadmill. Sunday mornings, I walk. I run on Fridays and Saturdays. Sundays, I walk. And I was thinking about my Sunday morning routine when I was going into middle school and high school, like early high school. And this was kind of the time where I first started to get a job working at the skating rink. And I love that job. I had that job all the way through college. And it was a great job because my next door neighbors owned the roller skating rink. So I grew up at their house because, again, they were my next door neighbors. We always went to the skating rink because we got in free. We were friends with them. My dad did work at the skating rink. They added an addition. My dad did all the flooring. And so we were just great friends. We never had to pay. I speed skated there on the speed skating team. I mean, we were just there. Anytime we wanted to go, we just walked right in. So I lived there. So of course I started working there when I was 14. And what I did the whole time I was there, I always played the music. I was the DJ. And so I always kind of wanted to be a radio DJ, which was kind of fun. But one of the highlights of my childhood, even before like my early teen years, was just having a radio. I've talked about this many times. My grandpa gave me an old beat up AM FM radio out of his garage. And I used to listen to AM radio incessantly, KMOX radio, Jim White, overnight call-in shows. And it'd just be a variety call-in show. He'd be on from 10. I'd listen to the Cardinals. And then after the Cardinals game, this guy named Jim White would just take calls. It's called At Your Service. And he would have a topic of the night. And people could call in and just talk about the topic, whether it was, a fun topic, sometimes a serious topic, but and I would call in even as a kid sometimes. And around Christmas, he'd do like variety shows where people could call in and play like their clarinet. People could call in and, just sing. I mean, it was wild. This was the 80s, but it was a wild thing. So anyway, one of the things is I got into 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade that I loved about the radio. And I got like and I never got a fancy boom box. Everybody always wanted the big, like in the late 80s, you wanted like the big boom box, with 2 cassette decks and the big speakers and the equalizer. I never got one of those. I got like a little one. But what I loved was Casey Kasem's Top 40. Sunday mornings I loved listening to the countdown. And I still do. I have 80s on 8 on Sirius XM, and I love the countdowns. And there's something about a countdown. I would be locked in. And one of the things was I always said, especially once I started DJing at the skating rink, I had to know like what the hot songs were so I could do my job well. And I took my job even as a 14-year-old at the skating rink very seriously because I wanted to play the best music because I wanted the skating rink to do the best it could. Every job I've ever had, I wanted to be the best employee that I can be. And so I just remember how hard I worked it, getting myself prepared for playing the right music. Cause here's how old I am. Am I not the oldest man on the internet? Like that meme. My boss would give me a certain amount of money every week, and I would go to a record store that was right down the street from the skating rink. It was called Street Side Records for those people in St. Louis. And I would buy 45s. Now, 45s people are records because we had 2 record players in our DJ booth at the skating rink, which in hindsight, it's a terrible thing to have at a skating rink because kids would run into the DJ booth with their skates at full blast. And sometimes they would hit it so hard it would skip the record. But I digress. They would hit it and it would skip. Anyway, he would give me like $40 a week, and I would go and buy 45s, or maybe every couple of weeks or so. And I buy 45s to play at the skating rink. And that's how we programmed our music. But how did I get my music? Back then, you couldn't go to the internet. There was no internet. I do remember that you could buy a Billboard magazine, and you could buy that like once a month. And I would buy that every once in a while, but it was a pretty expensive magazine. So I didn't usually buy it, but I would love to just tune in to the top 40 countdown with Casey Kasem. And it wasn't just the songs. It was the stories, because you would learn a little bit more about the artists. You would learn about their backstory. You would get the long distance dedications, which, cheesy, but you didn't have a lot of entertainment back then. They were fun. You would find out about tours that these bands were going to go on, and these artists. And it was always fun to kind of guess, are my favorite artists going to be number 1 this week? Are they going to slip down to 3? Who's going to be the new up and coming artist? Man, I live for this stuff. So anyway, I don't know how you guys felt. Did you guys tune into that? Casey Kasem was the jam. I know that, who else? Rick, there was another one after that, but I was always the Casey Kasem era, and that was it. Now, here's the thing. When I was in about 8th or 9th grade, my dad started a mobile DJ company called Celebrate DJ. And it got pretty big when I was in high school. We did a ton of wedding receptions, proms, homecomings, all kinds of parties around St. Louis. We had like 16 different systems at one point. So we could do 16 events in one night at the same time. We had a bunch of guys working for us. And so we had the means, like we had all kinds of, we had 16 sets of CDs that would go out, 16 sets of speakers and CD players and all that kind of stuff. So at that point, my dad was buying, he bought this book that it was basically an encyclopedia of top 40 lists from like the 50s through that time, through, the mid 90s or early 2000s. And I just studied those lists. I love those lists. It was just, I remember that book. It sat in his office. I loved it at our old house in Fox Lake. And it was just, I loved that book. And I should go back on eBay and try to find it, because it was really, really cool. But I do remember with those top 40 lists when I was working at the skating rink, this was probably like maybe when I was in 9th grade or 10th grade, that for a couple of the New Year's Eve parties that we'd have at the skating rink. So we always did an all-night skate on New Year's Eve. Now, this was probably, because I always worked for my dad on New Year's Eve, because my dad would pay me 2.5 times my normal rate. I would usually get $300 for New Year's Eve, which for a high school kid is a lot for one night. For like 4 hours, my dad would give me like $250, which was like, dude, my friends were making like $25. So I get like 10 times what they're making. But he was making a fortune, right? Because you could charge a premium for a church party. These Catholic churches would have these big parties in St. Louis on New Year's Eve, and it'd be wild. And I'd DJ them, or, I did all kinds of parties on New Year's Eve in St. Louis. Anyway, This was probably before I was 16 because I couldn't drive. So it was probably when I was 14 and when I was 15, and I was still working at the skating rink. Anyway, those years we had lock-ins. We called them all night skates at the skating rink. They would start at 7 p.m. and they would go till 7 a.m. and they would charge $20 per kid, and they would get to be there for the 12 hours. And we'd have like pizza at midnight. Every kid would get a small soda at midnight. But I mean, it was a 12-hour session for like $20. Looking back, that was the cheapest babysitting of all time for the kids, for the parents. I mean, come on now, $20 for 12 hours of babysitting. Are you joking? Give your kids another $20 to drop into the video games and, to get extra snacks and stuff. I mean, dude, are you kidding me? We are not charging enough. Anyway, what I did though for fun was I would put together, and they always did this too, like a week before, I would do a top 40 countdown at the skating rink of the top songs of that year. So the top 10 or the top 40 songs of 1989. And so I would be like, coming in at number 40 for 1989, we have Poison with Every Rose Has Its Thorn. And I loved it. I felt like I was Casey Kasem. And the kids loved it. I mean, you had to have slow songs, like you'd have like a couple skate for like a slow song, and then you'd have, you maybe have Ozzy Osbourne, with like Crazy Trains. You might have to have a speed skate. I mean, it was fun though, and and everybody's trying to guess, and people were like, "Oh, what's going to be number one?" I was like, "Hey, well, maybe we'll get to that at about 2 a.m. We'll have to see." But we'd pause and do stuff. We'd give away prizes throughout the night. But it was fun because I got to kind of live out my dream, which is what I'm doing right now. I'm sitting behind a microphone and doing talk radio, kind of. I'm getting to interact with you guys, which is fun because when you send feedback through the Patreon messages like David and Trisha and Michael today and a lot of other folks do each week, I get to live my dream. I'm not Casey Kasem. I'm not talking to millions of people like he did, but I'm doing what I can, and I'm getting to, this makes me happier than getting to do this. The podcast makes me so happy, but the top 40 countdown brought together music that I love. Like today I saw on Twitter that in 1981, the song Private Eyes by Hall & Oates was number one. I love that song. That's Hall & Oates is one of my favorite artists of all time. I love all their music. And just like thinking about back then, just hearing, because there'd always be a drum roll on that show for number one, the number one song in the land today, Hall & Oates. And you'd hear like the intro of the song, do, 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 do. Private Eyes by Hall & Oates. And I get all excited because I'm like, yes, I love that song. They're number one this week. And it's almost like your team won or something. But yeah, those memories, I just remember sometimes, a lot of times I'd be at church, so I wouldn't get to hear like the whole countdown. But sometimes if our preacher would end at enough time, you get out to the car before number one was announced, because that was usually at noon here in the central time zone. So you get to catch that. But a lot of times we wouldn't go to church because we'd have a baseball tournament or something, and we'd be driving to the tournament. So you get to listen to the whole countdown on the way to the tournament. That was always a highlight. I love the American, I don't know if it was American Top 40 or what it was called, but it was Casey Kasem for me. And he was just so good at it. I had no idea he was like Scooby-Doo and Shaggy and all that stuff. And he did a bunch of comic voices. I had no clue about that, but I read that later. But I don't know. So what are your memories with that? Did you guys get into the countdowns? Did you listen on Sunday mornings to Casey Kasem? Did you do the other countdowns? I know there were other people that did countdowns, but am I an outlier? Do you love that? I mean, I still get it like on Sunday mornings when I get in the shower after I walk, I turn on 80s on 8, and like it'll be like the top 40 songs from August 25th, 1984. And I'm like, let's do this. I'm like, I love this. And I try to guess what they might be. I don't know why I like countdowns so much, but I do. It's how my brain works. So anyway, that's what's going on with me. I hope you're having a great week. Let me know your memories on countdowns. Top 40. I loved it. But I hope you're having a great week. I appreciate you guys so much. And just I hope you're having a lot of blessings here in the wrapping up summer. And if you're down in the Gulf Coast, please do stay safe. And if you need anything, just let me know. So until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you real soon.